Ladies and gentlemen, it's that time again. We're all live. We're live on SMWS, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. We're going everywhere, as always, to all of our members and guests around Australia and indeed sometimes even around the world with some of the comments we get in. Andrew, good to see you.
Good to see you, Matt, as always. Pleasure to be here.
Fantastic. Pleasure to have you. Yeah.
Are you festivated? I'm festivated. I can't wait to festivalize with you.
I'm salivating, festivating, absolutely prepped for the whole Festival 10, which is what tonight is all about for our Festival 10. Festival 10 meaning, of course, we're tasting through 10 of the 10 festival releases. So before we do, there's a couple of points I just want to bring up on screen as we go across these for the Festival 10 tonight. Here is tonight's tasting order. So it is as it is in your menu. You should all have a menu ready to rumble, which came in your boxes that says the whole Festival 10. It is as the menu goes in the order of these drams. So if you're ever lost, just follow the menu. There is a tasting order again on screen, though, so you can see it. We're going to kick off with the 108.67 if you want to pour that one nice and early now. And then move through the Speyside, Lowland, and Highland releases in the first 5 releases there. And then we're going to take an interval. We're going to have a 15-minute, just a little bit of a gap in between the two tastings, and then move into the Speyside and Isla releases. Sorry, the Campbelltown and Isla releases, not Speyside. Starting with Speyside. Yeah, Campbelltown and Isla releases for the second half. Now, just a couple of tips for tonight, because it's 10 drams. A couple of quick little tips for tonight. I recommend taking your time with doing 5 or 10 ml little serves from your 30 ml bottles. Of course, you can do your full 30 ml of each dram as you go tonight, but that means you would have clocked over about 300 mils of cask strength whiskey in the space of about an hour and a half. So I don't recommend that as a serving size for whiskey. We like to drink responsibly. So that's take your time. I recommend just pour a little bit out of each sample. That's what we're going to do tonight. Have some water for sipping to keep yourself hydrated, and have some water for the drams if you want to add a drop of water as we go along. I do recommend pre-pouring ahead of time wherever possible. So if we're about to test the first one, you should already have that poured, and maybe even pour your second and third now as well if you've got enough glassware. And please bring your comments and questions. Throw them in the chat. We see all of them in the chat. So we're going to immediately start by saying, Dove saying, let's get the show rolling, of course. Jesse saying, where's Bailey? Then hashtag there's Bailey. And then Praculio, good to see you, mate. Evening from Chris.
Christian is on as well.
Everyone's on. Look at this. Drink from the bottle, peeps. Yeah, again, like I say, responsible. I mean, I don't recommend it, but I do recommend having some appropriate glassware to start you off. And I'll just bring up, where are we up to here? Number 5. Here we go. So I'll bring that up on screen, put us back looking like this, and I'll throw the caption up as well. I'll throw that
the caption.
There you go.
Oh, I tell you, I'm off to a bad start. I put the lid down on my cap down on my first bottle and can't find it. There we go. Got it now.
Yeah, well.
Oh.
Okay, so pour just a bit of this one, the plunge into chocolate sponge we're going to start with. I'll bring that up on the screen here as well, as you can see there. Is that coming up? Yeah, that's coming up now. Cool. 108.67. So I'll just start by starting us off, Andrew and I, 10 festival releases this month and this year to celebrate the festivals around Scotland, different regions of Scotland. Of the 10, we managed to get, we're very lucky because we got 3 of those 10 are single casks and 7 of those 10 are rare releases, which have been batched together to be enjoyed around the world. But 3 of them are single casks, including this one, 108.67 in our traditional numbering format. 228 bottles, and Australia secured about 97 of them. So we took on basically half the cask here.
About to say, punching well above our weight there.
Very much so. Very much so. I'm always fascinated by any whiskey that's especially an ex-bourbon cask like this is. I'm always fascinated by any ex-bourbon cask whiskey that has that chocolate sponge note, has like a chocolate note, a flavor that you often mostly associate with sherried whiskeys, I find. But like, some sherried whiskeys, we say fruit cake, we say chocolate cake, things like that in some sherried whiskeys. But to get chocolate cake out of a ex-bourbon cask is always fun. Andrew, have you had a nose?
I have. I'm also just dicking around with my tech in the background. I've just noticed that the camera that's come up is doing some strange things. So don't worry, I'll play with that in the background. Yeah, wow. So I think this is a fantastic distillery to start off with, and a whiskey to start off with. It's one that obviously you don't see very often. Doesn't have a commercial presence really. Not certainly the unpeated version. Ironically, they do some peated runs of this distillery, and that's what actually got released commercially. But it's one of those distilleries that's rarely seen, rarely photographed, very, very hard to pronounce, and as a result, it's one you don't encounter very often. I think it's fantastic if you're going to have a festival and celebrate Speyside that we shine a light on those areas of Speyside that we don't often look at.
Yeah, especially just like you say, especially a distillery like this, you don't see really any expressions from. It's a pretty contemporary distillery. This one doesn't really it's one of those very modern ones that can be run by one person.
Yeah, and that was the whole thing. These days, it's owned by, it's part of the Shivers Group, which ultimately falls under Pernod Ricard. But they were, I don't know if I can use the word pioneers, but they were certainly very headstrong and getting out there to make sure that their systems were as automated as possible. And you're right, it means that there's generally, just one person controlling everything. All their spirits, their stills are basically controlled by flow meters. So that old romantic notion of the stillman turning the dial and carefully checking everything doesn't quite occur at the 13 distilleries owned by Shivers. As I say, all very much automated. But what that means is consistency. It means they're getting the same thing every time. No human hand or human error that can come into it. And as a result, you know what you're going to get. And given that Shivers are so much into the blending game, consistency is 9/10 of the law.
Yeah, absolute consistency. But can we just remark for a second that we've seen some really good peated and unpeated expressions from 108 over the years, and even more recently.
Yeah, for sure.
It's also worth noting, just nice and early, that most of the whiskies we're tasting tonight, especially the first 6, I should say, first 5 tonight, and then the 6th one, which will be the first one after interval, have all been already released. Some have already sold out, but what is available is, of course, can be grabbed on the site. It's just under the festival casks, or you can get your phone out now and go. There you go. You can just scan that QR and you'll find it. Oh, where sometimes I think currently Andrew's in a hot air balloon.
This is really annoying me. I've got a fantastic backdrop of the vaults in the background and members having a great time for the festivals, and instead this old image is coming up behind me, and it's not even the right thing. And no matter what I do on the other side, it ain't working. So if I come and go or I look distracted for the next little bit, it's just me trying to muck around with some tech.
Just tech issues. It's okay.
Yeah. In the meantime, wow, I've now gone from nose to palate on this, and seriously enjoying it.
Would you be inclined to add water to that? I wouldn't. It's already mid-50s. It's already 14 years. It drinks really well.
I wouldn't be inclined to. No, I'm not reaching for water. I'm very happy with where it is.
I'll give it a go.
That's not to say it couldn't take some or wouldn't improve, but it's not a natural reaction to reach for the water at this stage.
Evening to David and Caroline Taylor. Great to see you both a few weeks ago. I've got a photo here we can just see of the still house. This photo was taken by our Unfiltered team. Like you can pretty much tell it is quite a modern looking building, even on the inside and out. And there's not too many staff running around.
From memory, I've been in that room. From memory, the distillery was built, was it 74? 1970?
Yeah, 73, 74, somewhere around there. Yeah, mid-70s. Designed to keep up and compete with blending requirements at the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, quite a modern distillery. It's 50-ish years old. As a result, if next time someone tells you they've got a 55-year-old distillery 108, bottling. It's probably,
you'd look a little dubious at them, wouldn't you?
yeah, just a little bit, a little dubious. Yeah. That's lovely. And so that's one of the single casks of the festival this month. I think a really good entry point for us tonight as well. It's bright, it's tropical. It's got a lot of that sort of like vanilla creaminess, a lot of that sort of chocolate sponge cake. I'm getting a bit of that caramel wafer, vanilla ice cream kind of note. I love that vanilla ice cream note in a whiskey. We've seen it in some of our fives. If anyone's had a chance to taste any of the fives that have come through, we've had a string of 18, 19-year-old fives from the lowlands that have this like strong vanilla bean note, which I think is very desirable.
Yeah, it's very lovely.
For 14 years, completely matured in a first fill ex-bourbon barrel. Speyside Festival's grown a bit over the years. It used to be a one-day event, and now I think it's 3. So this is one of the Speyside Festival releases. Speyside Festival started as a 1-day, and now it's a 3-day. Might even be a week long now, actually.
I think it went out to 5 days. Certainly this year.
5. Okay. Yeah. So it's a pretty big deal now. The Lowland Festival, Campbelltown Festival, is still a bit smaller. And again, I think that's really representative by the number of distilleries in those regions as well. I mean, you've only got maybe at most 10, 11 distilleries in the Lowlands. And you've got precisely 3 in Campbelltown, almost 4. And you've got, you don't have many more distilleries in Isla than you do Lowlands, but Isla seems to have this certain charm of where it all started with the Feis Ile and the Isla Festival. So
I think the Lowland Festival is really interesting because until certainly when I started my malt whiskey journey, there were 3 distilleries left in the Lowlands, and now that's been the area where there's just been the biggest growth. There's, as you mentioned, 10 or 11. That's probably distilleries that have matured stock. There's more than that have just started in the last 2-3 years that haven't brought something to market yet. But it's certainly up around Fife. There's 7 or 8 distilleries in the Fife region now. You go down south to the Borders, and you've got the Borders Distillery. There's now, you've got the one in the Clydeside in Glasgow. You've got 2 in Edinburgh now with Holyrood, and then also Port of Leith. Yeah, so it's where all the growth is happening. So I think the Lowland Festival is going to be something to really look at in years to come.
Oh yeah. Speaking of which, we've got our next whiskey actually is not Lowland, so not really speaking of which, but we should press on and have a taste of where we're up to. We're going to go to the Speyside Festival. We're bouncing between festivals a bit here, but because we want to focus on flavor and not just the names. But if you want to pour yourself a bit of Viscous Velvet, that's the rare release 64.
Yum. This is the third time I've enjoyed this now, Matt. We had it. We did the 5 of the festival bottlings at the start of the month, and then we featured this at the Sydney Festival Tastings event just a week or 2 ago. And what I love about what I think is such a great talking point is that our panel assigned it and designated it to the old and dignified flavor profile. Something that's only 15 years old, and I just think that's so fantastic. I think we've got this notion in our head that something's got to get to 25, 30 years old until it can be considered old and dignified. But I think the panel doesn't assign just to fill the quotas. It's tasted blind, and they assign the flavor profile based on how they perceive it. And this one came across, very much as being in that category, and it certainly consistently comes across that way. And then you sort of open the book and go, oh, wow, it's actually only 15 years old, which, tells you just how much wonderful oak influence has been with this and how it's been put together.
I thoroughly agree. And on your point of quotas of flavor profiles, I'm so glad no such thing exists. I mean, we see it's 1 or 2 light and delicate casks a year. It's uncommon. Some flavor profiles are less common than others, and that's okay. That's just the way flavor and whiskey works. But onto your point about this, it's like, as I said before, we've had young and sprightly first fill sherry butts, and we've had deep, rich and dried fruits refill bourbon barrels. So it's not the cask, and it's not the age, and it's not the distillery code. It's purely the flavor.
Yeah.
It does nose and taste like a much older whiskey.
Yeah.
It's if someone told me, oh, that's a, if they said, oh, it's a 22-year-old from this distillery, or a 24-year-old whiskey from this distillery, but yeah, I can believe that. It's mature beyond its years.
Yes, that actually was a name of a society bottling many years ago. I think matured beyond its years.
I'll go you one level of nerddom deeper. It was a 7.197.
Oh, you win.
There you go.
Sorry, I'll leave the room. Mine.
It was an 8-year-old sherry to 7, and it didn't taste like an 8-year-old whiskey at all.
There you go.
Yeah. So yeah, Speyside Festival. It's a big one. It's now, like Andrew said, it's now a 5-day. It's a week-long festival with distilleries hosting events and releases, and
where it's changed a bit in recent years. I think its official name these days is called the Spirit of Speyside, and a bit like Feis Ile, it's not just about the whiskey. It's about music. It's about local produce. There's other organisation entities, farms, producers, dairy, cheese, food, salmon, all the things that sort of make up malt, music, food, and drink go part of into the Spirit of Festival. Obviously, we wear our whiskey hats and just focus on the whiskey side of it, but there's a lot more going on.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It's interesting. You look at the cask types that went into this, and it's Spanish oak, which is gets a big tick from me. Oloroso, then American oak PX, and some bourbon hogsheads. What I think is fantastic is sherry has not overwhelmed or dominated this spirit. It's added a nuance to it. I think I'm not party to exactly the ratio of how those casks were made up, but I suspect it's a majority ex-bourbon, and then these sherry casks have just added a little bit of color around the edges, and it makes for quite a complex dram without being a bombastic sherry bomb or just being an overly alcoholic fortified.
Yeah, I agree with you there. The level of the level of ex-bourbon and ex-sherry is just perfect. It's not one or the other too much of either. That's great. But there is just that leathery sort of old tobacco pouch, thick cured meats kind of vibe to it, which I just love in a whiskey. Very good question from Braculio. I'll have to dig into this one a bit deeper. Is it a mix of 15-year-old casks or potentially a mix of older casks where the lowest is 15? That is quite common. If the youngest cask had to have been 15 years of age, so there may have been a mix of some older whiskey in there to perhaps bring up that older whiskey character. There's a good chance that maybe there was a cask that was actually a fair bit older that was dipping below 40% or something. There's all sorts of opportunity here, and it is 53.1% natural cask strength. So that's actually quite low in the grand scheme of cask strength whiskey for that age statement out of Scotland. I mean, it is quite low. Yeah.
That potentially gives you a clue that there could be some older stock in there after all, actually.
Yeah. I think it's almost apparent that there would be with just the nose and the ABV on that.
There's a great comment there from David Gilks as well. Maybe you can bring that up. Yeah, nice one.
Yeah, delicate but powerful. I get the old and dignified, subtle sweet nutmeg, clove, and even sandalwood. Cedar planks. Yeah, I'll agree with that. One leather sofas, palatine stewed, quince apple, vanilla, and sweet spices. David, your tasting notes. I've said to you before that that spot there's a chair waiting for you in the tasting panel at the vaults. So you are always welcome. It's a great call. I get the cedar planks now that you say it. I know it's probably power of suggestion going on a bit there, but it's very apparent.
Oh, certainly, cedar is screaming out of this. In fact, it's almost I think it's cedarwood they use in the old saunas. You go into that sauna and got that smell of the oak. There's a touch of that there, isn't there?
I love that smell, by the way. I love the smell of an old sauna.
Right. Well, we might dive a little deeper into that later on.
It's just an aroma. It is that aroma of the rocks and the steam and the old wood.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it just reminds you of like an old cask. It smells like old wood and.
Yeah. No. Fair call.
Yeah.
Fair call.
I wouldn't look too far into it. Just it's sometimes
right.
nice to book a crappy hotel that has an old sauna. It's usually the Queensland hotels as well. Anyway, Cool. Well, that's a lovely Speyside release. We've hit two Speysides in a row here, and we're shortly going to move over to the Lowland Festival. So we might just pour a little bit of dram of G16.
Looks a bit weird, doesn't it? RRG16.
Yeah. It's just to confuse everyone. These ones.
So this, I was so thrilled when I saw this. Matt, do we want to share a bit of the story about this? It's quite a hell of a backstory, isn't it? It's
No, it's very cool. It was to do with the our own custom mash bill that Ewan Campbell and then Phoebe Brooks, who no longer is with SMWS, but was responsible for picking out a mash bill with there's Phoebe picking out a mash bill with this distillery, I should say, or distillery 156 or G16. It had a code name for last 6 years of maturation, which was G52. And it made no sense to anyone. And the society were trying to keep it very quiet. But if you just dug a bit deeper, you found out that G52 was the postcode of where this distillery is. So it was, it was our own mash bill into our own casks. First fill level 4 char, so heavy alligator char casks. A strong mix of corn, malted barley, and malted rye, unmalted rye, I should say. Andrew's turned into an OBS logo. Okay, and
sorry.
I'm talking to an OBS logo.
I'm half inclined to bail out and bail back in again. Would that muck you up?
No, you're good. You're good. No, yeah, sure. Okay. Andrew's having some tech issues. He's going to bounce back in.
You might need to let me back in, but I'll be back shortly.
Okay, we'll see you in a bit.
Will do.
Same link.
Yes, gotcha.
Yeah, thank you, Dov, for that comment. A sauna will smell old after about 18 months. Yeah, I'm sure it would, especially if it's had lots of use. Hey, fellas, good to see you. Good to see you, Matt. And stop deflecting, Matt. I'm not deflecting. What was I deflecting? Anyway, it does have all the stock in it. I'm sure it does. Anyway, so yeah, G16 was it's a, like I said, a project release for the society, a very exciting project release of our own mash bill, it was. Anyway, I can go right into it if you like. It was a cool example of where our spirit had been part of the main story, was that it's our sort of background as well as anything. Anyway, so 28th of April 2016, bottled at a bottled in bond strength, if you like, and it's not bourbon. This is not bourbon. There's no bottled in bond thing in the UK for this, but it is 58% corn, 21% malted barley, and 21% unmalted rye was the mash bill for this one. Andrew's back. He's parachuted back down into Leith, and he's found himself sitting at the vaults now.
Not only that, but I don't have this strange apparition floating around me as well. So yeah, sorry about that.
So yeah, it's a grain whiskey. So just to clarify even further, it's a grain whiskey, but it's distilled on pot stills rather than column. So it's a pot stilled grain whiskey. That means it's not technically a single malt by Scottish standards. So it is a grain whiskey. And it's not single malt anyway. It's a mixture of corn and barley and rye. And then, sort of a nod to the bottled in bond strength in the US with the 50% thing, which is kind of cool. But again, it's just stressing a number of times here, this is not a bourbon. We're not calling it one.
You're not allowed to use the B word.
No. It's almost as sweet as the 141.2 S&D. Yeah, the 141.2 was a very special whiskey. But yeah, it's something a bit different, this one. This G16 is something very different from the society. But
I just think it's such a fantastic distillery. I was fortunate enough to swing through it in 2017. They'd been distilling for a year at the time. And it's a distillery, like so many of the more modern ones that have emerged in the lowlands. They're also making gin and other spirits they can take to market straight away to help with cash flow, which seems to be the business model that so many new distilleries are now engaging in. So, their gin has won amazing awards, their vodka as well. And they were busy just, laying stock down at the time. So I tasted some work in progress, some of their malts at 1 year old, and was impressed enough to actually buy a cask. So I've got my own private cask of this over there at the moment, which is now getting up to 6 years old. and yeah, just so impressive. I love what they're doing. And then they've brought out their 1770 release commercially. So yeah, as I say, when the society shook hands with these guys and started the relationship, I thought this is a good thing.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic to see, and it's just the thing about this as well. This is not your typical lowland whiskey. Like, you know how we associate the lowlands with that soft floral,
Yeah.
you know, easy drinking, often triple distilled sort of product, but this is not your typical. And that's, I think this is a really good showcase of Lowland Festival this year, of saying things are changing in the lowlands. As you were saying before, there's a whole new sort of swathe of distilleries, really actually, and some of them are really playing around with their mash bills, their yeast strains, their barrel usage, everything like that. And really, I think a lot of the innovation in whiskey at the moment in Scotland is happening in the lowlands.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, that whole, when the region sort of, when some author came up with that notion in the 50s and 60s that the whole industry then pounced on, the lowland style, the stereotype was built very much around all the distilleries at that time still practicing triple distillation. And, you know, today, Auchentoshan is the only one that does that. So, you know, one out of whatever it is now, 12, 13, 14 distilleries is actually doing that very thing that typified the lowland style. So you're right, it is such a, maybe just another argument as to why sometimes the argument about regionality is a bit passe these days. But yeah, in any event, you can put all that to one side and just enjoy what's in the bottle and say, this is delicious.
Yeah, it's very delicious. A great question from Macaulio. With it being 50%, was it watered down, or did it end up at 50%? No, it was brought to 50% as the sort of that bottle, like as in bottled in bond sort of nod there. Also, that's the same proof that we bottle some of the sort of heresy releases. So this one's almost a heresy because it's something a bit different from us. It's a Scottish bourbon. It's a Skirban, as I've heard it called already, which is again not something we said, or not some phrase we've coined, and we're not getting in trouble for that. But no, it's no, but it was a low entry proof though for this, so it wouldn't have been far above this. It would have been 52-53% if it was bottled at natural cask strength. So yeah.
Yeah, no, fantastic drop. This won a lot of fans when we showcased it in Sydney just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, no, same for the Melbourne Festivals event, which was just on Saturday night, just been, and that was yeah, it was absolutely one of the top picks, one of the top 3 picks I'd say of the night. Someone said they're sad they're missing the stream. Well, you're not, because you're commenting on it. You're just here.
Yeah, that's a good trick there, Corbin. But yeah, we'll raise another dram to you. We've got 7 more to go, so we'll think of you.
Only 7 more. Yeah. Look, I mean, this is so exciting as well. We got 84 of these in the country. I think, top of my head, I think this one has sold out. If it hasn't, there's maybe there isn't. No, I don't want to speak out of turn there. It definitely is sold out. But on the point of stock of the festival releases, first of all, if you need any, there they are. And second of all, if you just keep an eye on the festival page if there's one that you think you missed out on, because sometimes we're able to add some stock back in again. Because sometimes stock, the way it works is, we won't bore you to death with it, but it's sometimes stuff is reserved for events and sometimes it's sort of tucked away. And so if we're able to add some more back in after it's dearly departed, that does sometimes happen, but not very often. But
which is actually a really genuine way of saying, hey folks, swing by the website more often than you probably are, because you'd be surprised what pops up occasionally. I say this all the time, we're always dropping stuff on the website that we don't necessarily send an email out about. It's not in outturn. There's just stuff that appears, and those that visit there regularly see these things and snap them up. But you do well to swing by and just check it out.
No, absolutely. And it's sometimes event stock, it's sometimes other purposes, sometimes it's partner bars. There's all sorts of reasons why things change around. But it's as Andrew said, drop in more often, and you'll find things on there. And one which does happen, and members have remarked on a few times, is that sometimes we're lucky enough to maybe get 6 or 12 bottles or something that we didn't think we were going to get, and it what's the better way of saying it, mysteriously appears. And so it just and so it's like, well, it's not enough to put in an outturn. So we just go, just to quietly sort of
it's happened twice on our last 2 shipments. There's just been some extra bottles that we weren't expecting, and they're there, and then you go, okay, well, very good, we'll find a home for them.
Yeah. And the other part of my brain goes, some other branches missed out on this. Sucked in. Too bad.
Yeah. I give that about 0.2 of a second consideration, and then move on.
Anyway, there's the QR if you're shopping from your phone. Of course, if you are watching this and you're not a member, you can also grab a membership by just scanning with your phone as well. Look at that. Oh, who's not on silent?
That's a society member sending me a message on my other phone, actually.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Okay, and well, yeah. How do you reckon? Are we all good time to move on? You reckon? Maybe
I'm happy to move on.
Yeah, let's give Bake Off a try. We're up to Bake Off rare release 68.
Now, Matt, when we did our virtual at the start of the month for the first 5, I seem to recall at the time this was your favorite. Has your opinion changed since then, or is it still your favorite of the lot?
No, actually, my favorite was then and is still now Viscous Velvet 64.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, you've changed.
Oh, you've changed, man. No, I do like this one a lot. I've tasted this a couple of times now, and I am quite fond of it. I love our 68s though. They're nutty and rich and wild and wacky.
I reckon it is such an underrated distillery. I really do. It's and look, its owners don't necessarily shine a light on it too brightly, and I'm okay with that. Actually, it means those of us in the know can enjoy it.
Look, Andrew, you've been around long enough to remember this phenomenon of what happens when indie bottlers shine a really good light on a distillery, and then you get Distillery 76 for ages,
Yes.
Great bottlings of 76s, and we still see some now and then, but then every so often the brand goes, oh wait, this is a really good single malt, we should market this ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think 68 is next in the canon, or at least in the next 3 rounds in the canon to shoot off, and suddenly we're going to see some diamond encrusted, satin boxed releases from this. Maybe I don't know.
Look, it's such.
I'm speculating.
Yeah, you are, but you speak the truth. Great distillery to visit too. If you go to Scotland and you head up into the Highlands, this distillery is in Pitlochry, one of 2 distilleries in the area. The other one is Edradow, although unusually, I mean, Edradow was such a destination on the tourist drive, and we hear that they haven't actually opened their doors yet after COVID. They're still closed. So Pitlochry, which is people call it a tourist trap, but at the end of the day, it's a beautiful village in the Highlands to go to. And this distillery 68 is just at the very southern end of the town, and well worth swinging by. It's got a lovely old history. It was originally, well, not originally, but it became into the hands of Arthur Bell and Sons. It was the heart of Bell's whisky. And that, by that association, it eventually came into the hands of the DCL, which is Diageo as we know it today. As such, it's a big component in the Diageo blends, and that includes the Johnny Walkers of this world, Jane B. Rare, those sort of ones. But as a single malt, boy, it just shines.
Yeah, it really does. And just like these rare releases, I think it's that combination of good cask selection that's made this one really, really bounce out of the glass. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Do you perchance, sorry, we folks, you're getting a bit of an insight here. We don't always touch base in the lead up to these things. Do you perchance have a picture of the stills or the still house?
Which picture did I go with? One of our unfiltered ones that Richard took. Oh, there we go.
Oh, perfect. Just what I was hoping you'd bring up. So look at that. Short, squat still, which means that all the heavier oils and alcohols make it to the top. Look at the line arm. It's reasonably flat. It's not ascending, so you get the real, thick, heavy oils and ethanols make it into the spirit, and that's why it's such a rich, biscuity, nutty, malty spirit. And you stick that in a good cask, and it really shines. Boy,
look at the line arm. Look at that line arm.
Oh, come on.
No, it's true. It's true.
I saw your application to Line Arm Aficionados Facebook group.
And it was promptly declined.
Well, I'm the admin, so
Oh, yeah. So naturally, yeah.
Yeah, wow. And look, a bit like the one we had earlier. It's again Spanish oak, Oloroso, combined with some bourbon casks, And again, I think the two have fused really nicely.
Yeah.
It's neither one sort of overwhelms the other. There's a lovely balance there. There's a richness to it. I think at 53.5%, it just sings. Again, I don't feel any sort of inclination to reach for water.
I love that. I love that. It's like boozy trifle, like really soaky, boozy trifle.
Yep. Yeah, actually, David's just made a very similar comment. He's used the word quite boozy. Marzipan, raisins, seared ribeye. Oh, seared ribeye. That's a good call. Wow.
Now I feel like a seared ribeye. Thanks a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah.
Andrew, can you carry this for the next 20? I'll be right back.
Well, we're having a 15-minute interval. Is that enough time to knock one up?
Actually, probably is. Yeah, it probably is.
Yeah.
Dried ginger comes in alongside cigar ash. Yeah, cigar ash. Yeah. Wow. Apple peels and honeyed nuts. Very nice. Yeah, it is very nice. It's very different. It's actually quite different from other 68s we've had recently.
Yeah.
Which have been quite savory, biscuity, and syrupy. This one has got the syrup notes, but it's more of that the boozy marzipan and raisins and stuff. I suspect you can see in the cask makeup of the description, it lists first fill and refill Spanish Oak Oloroso first. So that may have been the predominant cask mix for this one, and bourbon hogsheads. So yeah, not a huge yield either. In fact, I think it's one of the smaller yields of the festival bottlings, 1,174 bottles worldwide. It sounds like a lot, doesn't it? But when you put it into context of 40,000 members around the world and 1,100 bottles of this festival release, it's not many. So
a warm good evening to Mr. Espinoza, who's just joined us, who was guilty of pinging on my phone just 5 minutes ago, by the way.
And now he's pinging on the screen as well.
Yeah, he's pinging on the screen, yeah.
If you send a carrier pigeon next, Alex, we'll cover all three bases. No, there we go. So there's the big spicy still, big nutty boy.
Do you know what? Of the four whiskies we've had so far, this for me is the one where the finish is the most complex.
Right.
They've all had something going for them, but you swallow this one, you've left with the residual or residue spirit on your palate, and the finish just goes in so many directions. It's a wonderfully complex finish. And I think one of the issues we have with our virtual tastings is we often overlook the impact of the finish. We're all about the nose, we're all about the palate. We're aware people are sitting at home and possibly wanting to move on. We don't always give the finish the due that it's due. And but tonight, this one is just singing out to me and saying, this is a finish you should analyze and contemplate and enjoy.
That finish is Moorish. That's a Moorish finish. That's one that I just go, I want to have another sip of that kind of finish.
Wow.
Are you picking, with a bit of time in glass, are you picking up a bit of that like citrus note as well? Like orange peel?
Ooh.
I'm getting a tiny bit of it. I added a drop of water to my glass and I'm getting a tiny bit of that sort of like orange glaze or orange peel sort of thing going on.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe
No, you are dead on.
But really like blowtorch on an orange peel kind of thing.
Yeah, it's the citrus of orange, but there's the bitterness of the peel.
Yeah, the peel, just there. Bit of peel. Something to hang your head on at least.
Yeah, Dobbs just offered up a clementine, and that's probably not too far off the mark as well. Thanks, Dobb. I've now got that song, My Darling Clementine, in my head.
No, don't start. Don't start.
If that's still in my head when I go to bed tonight, you're in trouble.
Oh, dear, oh, dear.
Yum.
So
again, I had a tiny little sip then just to go back and look for that citrus note that you just mentioned. It's now 20, 30 seconds since my last sip, and yet that finish is still giving. What a long finish, and what a complex finish.
Yeah. So can we just, before we move around a bit, can we talk about the Highlands? I mean, and this is our only Highland release for the year. No, not for the year, for the month, I should say, for the festival month. They're only festival Highland release. We've talked a bit before about what's happening in the Lowlands, which is very interesting. Are we seeing something? Do you reckon we're seeing something similar in the Highlands? Are we seeing any sort of we're seeing a lot of smaller distilleries pop up? I know that much, but
I think the Highlands is a really difficult region to categorize, and it always has been, really, if you think about it, because you've got the lowland highland line stretching from east to west there, or west to east, depending on how you look at the map, and you've got the distilleries down in the southern end of it, the Perthshire distilleries like Edredale, this one, Blair Athol, Aberfeldy's not too far away, Tullibardine, and they've got their style. And then you head up to the west of Speyside, where you've got the likes of Royal Brackla and Glen Ord around Inverness. They're Highland, but they're a different style. And then you go north of Inverness to the likes of Balblair and Glenmorangie, and then further up to Old Pulteney, and then right at the very far north now, where you've got Wolfburn and the like. And let's not forget that the islands officially are part of the Highlands as well. So Highland Park and Scarborough and Orkney fall into that mix. So I think it's a really difficult region to have an all-encompassing festival that captures all of that, and certainly very difficult to pigeonhole, because there's so many different flavors in that mix. And I think good on the society for plucking out this one from 68 to represent it. But I think you could have plucked out any of those 12, 13 distillers I just mentioned and say, well, this is a good Highland dram. Is it representative of the Highlands? I don't think there's such a thing anymore. But sorry, there's no one distillery that typifies the Highlands.
No.
You can go to Islay and you can pick out any of the 7 distilleries there making peated whiskey every day. And yes, okay, we know the other 2 do peated runs as well. So okay, we'll say it all 9. You can go to any 9 of the distilleries there and say, well, that's typically Islay. It's peaty and it's smoky. But how do you capture, for example, what Wolfburn are doing and compare that to the honeyed style of Tullibardine or Aberfeldy? They're so different.
True. But you also did, you said one of my trigger words, one of my favorite distilleries. You said Glen Ord.
Do you like Glen Ord?
Love it. Love it.
Yeah, I just wrote a big feature piece on it for Whisky and Wisdom week ago.
Awesome.
Yeah, they've just brought out a 40-year-old. Very, very tasty.
Right. Yeah. And there's those special releases. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
it is a great distillery. That's pretty obscure for someone to say they like Glen Ord. That's
it's got that old school tinge to a lot of their spirit. I love. It's got that tinned peach and copper roof kind of note to a lot of their spirit, which is just
Actually, it's funny now that you say that. That's a good typical Highland distillery, isn't it?
It is.
To completely go against what I just said. If you had to pluck one out, you could mention Glen Ord and say, well, that's the Highlands for you.
In fact, June outturn, I think, or even currently on the site, you'll spot 77.72. Admire the architecture. One of my favorite, just under the radar releases of just a structurally fantastic whiskey.
Yeah, right.
They're all fizzy and savory and old school. They're just great whiskeys. The 77s we get through, and I've tasted a few core range Ords as well, which have been fantastic. But it's an underrated distillery. It's a bit like Cragganmore. It's one of the distilleries where it's like a bit sort of under the radar still. Ord's way further down the radar than Cragganmore, but has that light whiff of smoke, and anyway, just fantastic. Normal agrees on that one. Yeah, admire the architecture, was amazing. Great whiskey. So we shall press on. We've got one more whiskey before our little interview. Interval. Okay. Let's pour ourselves a bit of massive oak extraction. By the way, thank you everyone for tuning in who's been watching along. Everyone who's bought a pack for tonight, and those who have packs and are going to watch it later, thank you for watching. This is, of course, our full festival virtual 10. The virtual 10, the festival 10, live with us for festival month, live right now on all your favorite platforms.
How amazing is the color on this, and then the nose that just confirms what the color tells you.
I wonder if this is sherried. No, this is an absolute just sherry behemoth. It's but the trouble is, when you say sherry behemoth, some people will take that as a negative, and this is not. Yes, it's a sherry bomb, but it's not bombastic. It's not unbalanced or untoward. But for me, this is just stunning. It's got Spanish Oak Oloroso, American Oak PX, and refill butts. So it's 3 different uses of sherry cask in this one. Had a global yield of 2,554, so a very healthy yield. Australia punched well above our weight again. But this one, now, just to let everyone know who are chasing festival bottlings, it's worth noting that this one was limit 1 per member. It did sell out. Then we've had a little bit left over that we had for the second chance ballot and whatnot. Is okay. So we're able to release that back online. So that one is back online, available, and it's not limit 1 per member anymore. So if anyone who did grab one of these wants to grab a second, you are more than welcome to as of now, because it's back online. So, but yeah, let's dig into this 14-year-old from Distillery 24.
Sorry, I'm mucking around in the background here. There we go. How about that?
Oh, now you're standing outside Distillery 24.
I'm standing outside Distillery number 24.
The next image we had here was, you're outside, I'm inside.
Oh, very nice.
There we go.
Oh, look at that, Matt. Downwards descending line arms. Contrast.
Looks like about 18-degree descent. Good.
Yeah, but it tastes like 16 degrees, doesn't it? It
does. Yeah, pick up real 16-degree vibes in this one. Maybe these casks are adjusted line arms.
Wow, what a lovely drop. Most people know my favorite distillery these days, and it's been my favorite distillery for 20 odd years, but it wasn't always. And in fact, Distillery 24 was my favorite back when I first got into malt. That changed, and that's another story. But I tell you what I loved about this is that it took me back to those early memories. It took me back to why I fell in love with this distillery in the late 90s. Just a wonderful drop.
It for me, there's no way of saying this without it making it sound like as in, like, I just wish that more people could taste this and realize that's what this distillate could do.
Yeah,
because I hate to compare the core range on any whiskey we put out, because it's so relevant, because it's so what we're doing with wood and at the societies and and maturation is often means the end result is so far removed from house style it doesn't make any sense anymore to compare. But this does, I think, warrant a comparison to the sherried releases we see from this distillery.
Yeah. One thing this distillery was always renowned for, and forgive me, I'm going to say the phrase back in the day.
It's okay. Yeah.
Was, it was obviously it was a distillery that championed sherry oak maturation, particularly Oloroso sherry. It did it well, but what was always great about it was that you never lost sight of the malt.
Yeah,
and that changed a little bit over time. And another distillery that where the society knows number one came along and did a better effort of that.
Supplanted your number one love.
Yes, yeah. But as I say, it's just a wonderful walk back in time for me. I'm almost what's the word? I'm reminiscing and nostalgic for just how much this reminds me of the wonderful Distillery 24s, number 24s we had.
Yeah.
Because, sorry, getting back to where I started, that very drawn out sentence was, I can still smell and taste the malt.
Yep.
That for me is what I'm really enjoying. Obviously the sherry is there. You've got all those classic fruitcake, Christmas pudding notes, but it's fused with malt rather than sitting alongside or overpowering it.
The David Gilk says the richest of oak and deep sherry, Maggi seasoning. Yes, I love those little Maggi seasoning bottles. Soy sauce, oak splinters, deep caramel sweetness, meaty beef bouillon, candied almonds, teriyaki, some fruits. I think it's a 17-degree arm though. Yeah, look, this was maybe in a 17-degree era for the arms.
I just think you're splitting the difference. Matt said 18, I said 16. I think, it's just that's just called playing the odds, mate.
If someone wants to actually Google what the degrees on the line arm are at this distillery, I'd love to hear it. I almost said
let's get in touch with the Swedish branch. They'll know the answer.
Yeah.
A warm good evening and welcome to Mr. Matt Wooler. Good to have Mr. Wooler along.
if Matt, just in case you wondered why I didn't answer my phone 2 minutes ago, I'm live at the moment, so you can say what up, boys. Here, good to see you, Wooler. There we go.
Wow. Now, tell me, did anyone watching at home remotely feel the need to add water to this, or even add water just for scientific purposes? Because I certainly didn't and never would. Which is amazing. It is 63%. It's the highest alcoholic drink we've had tonight at 63. Normally 63 could have you reaching for water.
I just have.
As we explored when we had this at the Sydney tasting just the other week, and everyone in the room agreed it was just so soft and balanced and wonderful. No aggressive, aggressive about it. No volatiles, and water was just not necessary. Wow.
I've just added a bit of water. It doesn't destroy it, but it doesn't need it.
It doesn't. Yeah.
So as I mentioned, we did put this 24 back online. As a small allocation back online. If anyone missed out on this, I wanted to grab one. Just before we break for interval, it's also worth noting that it is coming into the colder season, and we have these lovely beanies that are available on the line. There they are, the Society beanies. I'm often wearing one. Mine's here somewhere. I can't find it at the moment. And these lovely Society jackets that I use almost every week at the moment. So they're back online for anyone who's been chasing them down. But Andrew and I are going to sip and enjoy the rest of this 24.
I would, mate. Mine's all gone.
Oh, yours is gone. Okay. Okay. I'll leave that then.
What's that old dad joke? It's evaporated.
It evaporated. I looked at it too long. Yes, it's gone.
Yes, that's right.
We'll be right back. So the plan with tonight is that we're going to taste through these first 5, which we just have, and then we're going to come back for round 2, which is Campbelltown and Isla Festival. So prepare your peat pallets for the next round. So we're just going to take a quick 15-minute interval, just a chance to flush through our glassware, prepare ourselves for the next one mentally and physically, and we'll see you in 15 minutes. So stay on the stream. The stream's not going anywhere. Talk amongst yourselves, and we'll keep the comments coming. Keep the comments coming through. We'll catch up on them all. We're just going to take a quick 15-minute gap in between here. Let's hope that this works. I think.
Do we need 15 minutes, Matt, or 10? Do you think?
Oh, we can make it 10. We can make it 10.
Let's go 10.
Yeah, let's go 10. Okay. I'll be back in 10. My slide's not working, but that's okay. We'll see you in a bit.
Wow. Wow.
Okay, we're back. We're back. Here we go. Let's bring it all together here. Let's minimize this. We're back on screen. Look at that.
We're back.
So even ChatGPT doesn't know what the line arm angle for Distillery 24 is. They probably keep it a trade secret, to be honest. They're probably like, this it's our design, our patent, go away. I'm not telling you the angle. But we're back. Here we go. So
Sorry, just reading my glasses. I had 10 minutes to get my glasses ready and I failed. So
I did see you get up for a bit and wander off somewhere. I thought, he's getting the fresh glassware. Yeah, good.
No, I got up and enjoyed the rest of 68 and just went outside and enjoyed the finish for a bit.
Yeah.
I actually found a few dregs left of RR24, so I finished those off as well.
Oh, good. Just hoovering through them. Good.
There's a part of me that's still Scottish. You don't want anything to go to waste.
Folks, we're heading into the Campbelltown Festival. So if you want to pour, or if you've already poured, which would be recommended, your Rare Release 93 Lock, Stock, and 2 Smoking Funnels, an 8-year-old in celebration of the Campbelltown Malts Festival of 2023. Andrew and I have tasted this one already. We tasted this at the Directors 5 tasting a couple of weeks ago. I was very lucky in 2019. I hosted one of the Feis Festival, the Campbelltown Festivals, I should say, in Campbelltown with John McShane, and we tasted a few 93s that day with members in the Ardshiel Hotel. And
very nice.
We had two. It was a great location and great idea, and everything almost worked. we had one audience, which was live streamed. The whole thing was a virtual tasting, but you could join in person next door in the room next door and watch along on the TVs on the room next door as a sort of a in-person event, but on a TV. And it was it was good. It was good. The in-person crowd had a roaring good time because they were just passing bottles around and filling their glasses with Campbelltown whiskey. But the one thing that the producers didn't check, and we were absolutely just furious, was that I guess there's internet in Campbelltown. So it was sort of like, yeah, we'll get 5G in Campbelltown, barely scraping 3G in that area, and it was live streaming at 1080p or something doesn't work very well, and so most people just sort of got a jittered sort of John and myself going throughout the live stream, and they had the most insane setup of broadcast cameras and lights and backlights and downlights and makeup and all this stuff ready to go, and we're sitting there and then like, we can't really get a good reception. If you don't have a good connection, nothing else matters.
I think people forget this, and I don't know if the backdrop behind me gives you any indication, but there are parts of Scotland still, well-populated areas, and Campbelltown's one of them, that are very rural still. Services aren't great. If you go up into the heart of Speyside, be very careful about which mobile phone carrier you choose, because you can go with one of the big ones that has great coverage in Edinburgh and Glasgow, and you get up into the Highlands, you get no signal. No. It is extraordinary. We forget that, particularly if you're an urban Australian and you're used to living in the big smoke of Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth, Adelaide, wherever, you go to where Scotland makes most of its whiskey. It's out in the far, rural areas. There's a reason why they built the distilleries out there, because that's where the wild rivers were, that's where the water was, and that's where the excise men couldn't get to. We forget about that. They were deliberately building places to avoid paying tax. And you don't expect to find good Wi-Fi or 5G signals when you go to these places.
Love that comment from Mel. It sounds like Adelaide. Yeah, Mel, you've got excellent connection in Adelaide. Don't we all know it? Yeah, so rural Scotland or Adelaide, they're both pretty bad for phone connection, or any sort of connectivity. But how about we stick our noses in this Rare Release 93, which is a nod to Lock, Stock, the film. But I think this was at the Saturday event, Andrew. I said before that Rare Release 68 was popular, or I think it was the 68 I was talking about. The G16 was very popular.
Yeah,
but this pipped it. This had way more interest, and this is the one, and it's such a fantastic whiskey.
Yeah. Now, I think even in Sydney, I think by the time we got to the sixth whiskey of the night, people were just generally agreeing they were all good. And it was when you do that vote at the end of the night as to which was your favourite, I think people were being asked to pick their favourite child. It was hard work. But look, it's that classic. What I love about the Distillery 93s, and if you've been a member for a long time, i.e. 10, 12 years, you'll have seen the full spectrum of what this distillery produces. The Society's released entirely unpeated releases from this distillery. We've had lightly peated ones. We've had one peated. We've had stuff in bourbon casks. We've had some amazing whiskies in sherry casks. In fact, some of the sherry 93s doing the rounds 10 years ago were just absolutely amazing. So it's just such a versatile distillery. But what I love about it is that no matter what style or cask it's been matured in, 9 times out of 10, you get that essence of Campbelltown. You get that dirty, grungy engine room, oil, harbour, maritime characteristics that just typify what Campbelltown's all about.
Yeah. Great comment from David. Really nice combination here of oil, peat, umami, salt, and seafood. Like a grilled eel sushi from a Japanese service station. Yes, that's awesome. Japanese servo sushi. That could have been a cool name, actually. That'd be a cool name for one of the Campbelltown releases. Japanese servo sushi. A nice lick of sweetness to finish and balance it all out too. Yeah.
Well, I think if anyone's had the privilege and joy of catching one of the Caledonian McBray ferries to any of the islands in Scotland, either to Arran or across to Islay or others in the Hebrides there on the west, you'll know that smell when you're standing out on the deck crossing, for example, the ferry to Isla. You've got it's the Atlantic Ocean you're sailing through at the end of the day, and you've got the smell of the ocean, the maritime saline spray. You've got the smell of the diesel and the fumes coming out the funnel of the ferry. There's oil and grease on the deck. You've got the chains, all that sort of stuff. And anytime I have a 93, I'm just reminded of being on the Calmac ferry. It's all those aromas. And with the aromas then comes your brain then makes the translation to what you're tasting as well.
Yeah.
It's
lovely.
How good is that?
It's so like it's viscous, it's oily, it's even slightly like salted butter.
It doesn't have the iodine for this comparison to be 100% accurate, but the peat level with the malt is very reminiscent for me of a Talisker 10-year-old, for example. Now, Talisker's got, as I say, a bit more iodine going on, but it's that sort of level, isn't it?
I get way more black pepper in Talisker.
Okay.
Generally speaking, like cracked black pepper as a note in Taliskers, whereas I don't get that in almost said it, in 93s. I keep saying one of 2.5 distilleries in Campbelltown, but it's not. It's pretty much 3 now.
Well, I go with 2.5 because 2 of them only operate for 6 months of the year, so they work down at one distillery and then head up the road and work the other one. So at any one time, there are actually only 2 operating.
Yeah. There's 2. I know of 2 new distilleries being built in the region. So Campbelltown, like Lowlands, like all the other regions in Scotland and indeed whiskies around the world, is also growing in terms of its interest. It's a region that was once known for its whiskey making. There's 120 distilleries there at one point, but there's now technically 3, but there'll be probably 5 by the end of this year. So it's
the new ones from memory aren't being built in Campbelltown town, are they? They're actually a bit further up the peninsula. Is that right?
One's in town though.
Right. Okay. Right.
Yeah. There's one up the peninsula, not far though, but technically Campbelltown still. But yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Not a huge outturn on this one either. And you'll notice on this one, like the other whiskies we've had from festival releases tonight, have been often combinations of casks. So first fill Oloroso and ex-bourbon, etc. This one is entirely first fill ex-bourbon barrels. So there's only one cask type used for the creation of this, and they're all 8 years old. Distilled 16th of September 2014 with an ABV of 60.2, and we got about 66 of these. So we've got a very small number of these comparative to some of the others, or maybe not as much as R68, which we only got 60. But it did sell out, so I regret to inform that this one.
But it's no less exotic, is it though, Matt? I mean, people say, oh, it's just they're ex-bourbon barrels. It's only the one type. Great, that's a good thing.
That's a good thing, yeah.
And their first fills. 8 years in a first fill produces a pretty stunning whiskey.
And you said last time we tasted this, you got that like Lapsang Souchong note.
Yeah.
Awesome. Goody. Okay.
Again, actually, my memory's giving out. I can't remember whether we added water to this when we did it last month.
I don't know. I don't think we did, but I really don't want to either.
No, I don't want to, but I am for the sake of science.
For science. Do it for science.
There we go.
That's fair.
In case people are wondering, by the way, this distillery, if you can see my initials on the screen, AD down the bottom left-hand corner there, that's roughly where this distillery is. And the other distillery that's a bit more famous in Campbelltown is, that side. There. I'll get this right. There we go. So that's where the other one is, Springbank. And 93 is over this side of the harbour.
Have you ever thought about following your lost passion as a weather reporter?
Oh yeah, that's
this over here. No, wait. Look, it's open. No, it's here. It's here. Wait, it's here. The high system's coming in.
I'm a star with green screens. It's there is that thing you can do somewhere in here where you can mirror and flip things so it works the way your brain works, but I couldn't get around to that.
I haven't enabled brain mode.
I think if you add a splash of water to this, it actually brings out some really nice notes on the nose, a bit more leather and vanilla. and malted barley. Actually, it brings out the malt.
I think you added water last time, and I think we both agreed it was pretty good with water.
Yeah. Caramel with a bit of time now, it brings caramel out, which I guess is part of those vanilla flavors I mentioned just a moment ago. Very tasty.
Lovely stuff. Well, that one has sold out, I'm afraid to say. But the next 4 we're going to taste through are all Isla releases. And we're very lucky this year that we got 4 Isla releases. So 3 rare releases and 1 single cask, which is so exciting. No, I take that back. Sorry. Rewind. Start again. 2 rare releases and 2 single casks. We're going to finish with the single casks. So we might push on to the rare releases now. So let's start with rare release 53. Honeysuckle Petrichor.
Oh, hang on. Time for a background change. There we go.
Wait, are you... That's not Distillery 53 behind you?
I hope it is.
We kind of moved to one side for a second. No, the other way. Move the other way. Oh, okay. No, sorry. Yeah. Your chair was blocking the front windows that I now recognize, but that angle looked like Distillery 3.
Oh, gosh. No, I wouldn't do that to
you. Pour a bit of this honeysuckle petrichor.
Wow.
Now, I just want to start by saying one thing about this 53. We've seen like a really good string of like 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old 53s come through. And we've seen a really solid string of like 29, 30, 31, 33-year-old 53s come through as well, which is fantastic to see the Vaults Collection ones and the regular 53s that we've been getting through. And when I say regular, like it's been coming harder for some bottlers I've heard to get 53s, to get this distillery distillate. Luckily, we've been maturing a lot of stock, laying a lot of stock down, and to be able to get 14-year-old shows a very different character that we've certainly bottled 14-year-old 53s before in the society, many of which years ago, but we haven't seen many teenage 53s in a long time. And I think it shows a totally different side of this distillery.
That said, I think when you look at the makeup of casks that went into this, and we've had a few of them now tonight, bourbon hogsheads and then first fill and refill American oak PX. Again, you're getting a lot. It gives you the foundation to make a pretty complex dram, doesn't it? When you think about all those different styles that we're combining to get bits and pieces of each of those. And I think Distillery 53 has the palate, and I'm thinking palate as in a painter's palate, to facilitate that.
Because we use the word palette in such a different context all the time, we've got to find a new word for painter's palette that isn't painter's palette. There's got to be another word for that device they use so we don't confuse them.
Maybe it's in the pronunciation. Is it meant to be palette?
Palette? That's the French palettes.
Yes.
Folks, I tried this one with this whiskey just a little while ago. If you do a rotation of your glass and just let it coat the inside of your glass for a second and then have a look at just how viscous that rolls down the sides, how thick that spirit is. That's so exciting.
Wow.
It nice, slow roll down the glass for me there.
Extraordinarily slow. I don't think I can recall seeing legs move that slowly. Oh, there's my daughter in Little Athletics, but that's another matter.
Yeah, that is it just oozes down the side of the glass, doesn't it?
Wow. Talk about ooze. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I almost thought there was something wrong with my glass the other week when I saw that. I was like, what's going on here? Is there still some detergent in my glass or something? But it wasn't that at all. It's just so thick and it's clinging.
The sherry influence on this has added a very interesting spicy dryness for me. I think a lot of the 53s that we've had more recently have chiefly been ex-bourbon matured, and they've been very clean, very malty. The sherry to this just adds that little bit of bite and grippiness to the palate. There's a pleasant roughness to it, and a dryness as well. Dried spices, cumin, fennel seed.
Yeah, I think you're bang on about the dried spices. If you think it's the sherry cask giving that, but it's
wow.
It is one of those distillates that does behave very differently between ex-bourbon and ex-sherry. I find as well. It's some distilleries I can't claim the same about that. Like I think it's fair to say like 68, which we had earlier, the Bake Off, the 68s we've seen in ex-bourbon and ex-sherry share a similarity. You can obviously spot the cask difference, but I think between the 53 sherry and 53 ex-bourbon are just two totally different beasts.
I think it's obviously the distillate. I mean, the heavier and oilier your spirit is, the easier it stands up to sherry wood. Now, this distillery has, taller stills. It's got a lighter distillate, and so it's going to be more shaped by the wood. And that comes back to what I said earlier about it's got a palette that can be used to apply to many different textures and flavors. Mr. Hamilton Brown has joined us. Good to see you, Paul.
Oh, where is he?
You've just brought up his comment there.
Oh, there he is. Yeah, sorry. Just his Facebook user. Yeah, it took me by surprise, and now I might have to choose this one. Yeah, there's a couple of 53s to choose from. We're going to taste the second one at the end of the tasting, which is the single cask. They are both 14-year-old. One is a rare release, batch release with a mix of casks like this one, and one is a single cask. But they are both hugely different. So if you want to, my other tip for tonight was if you want to keep just a smidge of that one in your glass, if you can. It might be a recommendation just to keep just a smidge of the honeysuckle petrichor in your glass and keep that glass aside if you've got enough glassware, of course. Great comment from David Gilks. Great tasting on here, as always. Curious combination of delicate florals and cured meats, rosewater, honey, prosciutto, smoked ham. Palate brings beefy smoke, fig chutney, and Italian mostarda. What is mostarda? Is that like David, can you tell me what mostarda is? I could Google it, but I'd love to hear.
It's remarkably similar to Moscato, isn't it? I was thinking of wine, but
yeah, is it like Moscato? Or is it a mostarda? Anyway, lightly salted licorice to finish. Yeah, lightly salted licorice. That I think goes back to Andrew's comment about those sort of spices and that sort of dark spice, candied spice thing going on there as well.
Yeah, well, I'd always almost think root licorice.
Yep.
Bordering on a little touch of what's that stuff? Sarsaparilla.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep.
Oh, that's tasty. I tell you, that's your winter fireside dram just there, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a fun whiskey, and it really exemplifies the Isla style. Our first big Isla whiskey of the night. 56.8%. I'm also not inclined to add water to that one.
No, doesn't need it at all, in my opinion.
No. Mostarda di frutta, sometimes called mostarda, is a northern Italian condiment made of candied fruit and mustard flavored syrup. I think I need to try that. That sounds really tasty.
Is that before or after we have the seared ribeye that we've got on the burner?
Stop saying ribeye. I'm having dinner after this.
Yes, that's right. Me too.
Okay, good. I'm swimming in samples here. Hold on. Where are we up to? Here we go.
Right, so moving on to
Finesse of a Fragrant Furnace.
RR3.
Now, I just want to, I'm just going to preface this one. Once I bring the slide up, here we go. Oh, nice backdrop, Andrew.
Yes, would you like that? So, folks, that is the village of Bamor. The distillery number 3 goes by the same name, and this was the last day of the festival. Sorry, the first day, the opening day, and they. If you've seen the famous main street of Bamor and the round church at the top, you're looking at the first day of the festivals there.
Amazing.
For the Isle Festival, of course.
For the Isle Festival. A soft spot for many malt enthusiasts, this distillery.
Yes. Gives some people a hard spot, actually.
And Andrew had to leave suddenly just now. That joke just killed his stream. His internet died after that joke. I'm sorry, folks. He just dropped out. Yeah, no. Now, just a quick point on this particular release, Rare Release 3. Finesse of Fragrant for an 18-year-old, predominantly second fill bourbon with a bit of Spanish Oak Oloroso in there as well. This was the highest scoring festival release for the team at Whiskey and Ireland. Those guys have incredible palates and taste. What would it be? Probably they open between 30 to 50 new releases on the bar every week. And this one scored, I think from memory, a 93 or 94 points out of 100, which for their scoring system is insanely high. They're very critical. Like they'll give something like 80 is a good score kind of thing. Like 80 is very good. 85 is outstanding. 90 is incredible. A very small number of whiskeys each year for them get over the 90 mark. So 93, 94, I think for this one. And this is one of the better integrated whiskeys I think we've seen from Distillery 3.
Look, yeah, on a serious note, and you touched on it a moment ago before I made a mess of things. But yeah, Distillery 3, certainly a lot of members in society, whiskey enthusiasts have a soft spot for this distillery. When it's good, it's great. You know, it is such an amazing drop. When you look at what the distilleries on Isla are producing and the levels of peat, this distillery fits in about the middle. It's certainly not as highly peated as the Lagerbollens, Lafroigs, Kalila, or Ardbegs. It's a step down from that. And that, if managed well in the right cask, can give an enormous complexity. Their spirit used to be famed for being very fruity. And so you had that malt, that fruit into a good cask with the peat and smoke, matured in the maritime environment, just made for the most amazing whiskies. And Distillery 3s, as I say, the good ones are up there with the best.
Yeah.
And
that's
oh wow, oh my god,
that's one of the best threes we've had in ages. This
is the first time I'm tasting this. We didn't have the privilege of trying it last time. That is extraordinary. Oh my gosh, and it is so number 3. It is, wow.
It's fragrant, it's floral, it's
there's a mutual friend we have who goes by the name of Bruce, and I know he's going to absolutely love this. I might need to acquire a bottle for him.
Yeah, he would love this.
Wow, that is so good. What I was going to say just before my palate slapped me and said this is a great whiskey. Not often you try this at 18 years old these days as well.
No.
You know, those late teens offerings are hard to come by through independent bottlers. Certainly the official range keeps dabbling between a 17 and an 18-year-old. Every couple of years they seem to change the magic number. But wow, this is just singing on all fronts, isn't it?
And not that we like to compare to other independent bottlings of this distillery that you see out there, but it is actually very good value for an 18-year-old of this distillery now, and it's mid-50s proof. I'm getting like do you get that like how do you say, like beach sand, like hot sand on the nose, which I love. It's like cherry pineapple and hot sand.
Oh, okay, I'm not quite relating to your hot sand note, but but pineapple, absolutely, yeah. And that's that fruitiness I spoke of earlier. There's something about the mystery of the stills and the distillate that comes off, and the esters that they somehow produce in what they do, that just add these wonderful fruits to the equation. And if you've ever had the privilege of trying the very old whiskies from this distillery, as in the 30-year-olds and the old bicentennial release and dare I say the Black Bamor, if you've tried any of those, you see where that fruit is coming from.
Any Distillery 3 with big chunks of fruit with that peat is just sublime, just so nice to drink.
Yeah.
Not too perfumey either.
No, look, I think it's funny. I think that the distillery copped a bad rap in the early 2000s for that, and that was the result of what they did to the distillate in the 90s. And I think that period is now gone. It's a bit of a shame that people still latch onto that. And it's a bit of a stereotype that you'll find on the internet if you go searching about it. But I think in reality, that phase has come and gone. It's always been a fragrant whiskey. I think that somewhat derogatory term of being perfumed and the old FWP note. I think those days are behind us.
Oh yeah, well and truly. Folks, I'd love to hear what you think of this 3 if you're following along. I know there's quite a few people viewing, so if you want to leave a comment on the YouTube or our Facebook or wherever you like to catch us, always appreciated. I'm going to keep a smidge of that in the glass. I poured the full sample on that one because I knew I was going to want to enjoy that one. But I'll keep a smidge aside for that one. But yeah, if you want to leave a comment about that, this is part of the week 4 releases on the 26th of May. That's this Friday. So all 4 Isla releases go live at midday this Friday. As a result, I should make it mention now, but in case I forget later, because I'm remembering it right now, the preview for June Outturn doesn't go live until Monday. So we're just going to push the preview for Outturn to 5 days before, not 7. But in the meantime, you can catch the Isla releases.
That's another one, a bit like the 68 we tried earlier, where for me the finish is just going and going and going. I had my last sip now 30, 40 seconds ago, and I'm still enjoying it. It hasn't evaporated. It's still delivering. It's expanding. There's a saltiness that's coming through. There's a sweetness. Wine gums are now starting to roll onto the palate. Such an amazingly complex whiskey that just delivers and delivers. And that for me is the real marker of a great whiskey, one where you have a sip and you're in no hurry to go back for a second one because you're still enjoying what's there from the first one. And that to me is what a finish is all about. That's what makes it a long finish. We've all had those drams that are so thin and mean, and you take a sip and you instantly go back for another one because it's evaporated on your palate and there's just nothing to it. Whereas this one, for me, this is a whiskey where you could make your dram last a very long time because the interval between sips would just be so long because of the duration of this finish. What a lovely drop.
Folks, also just my personal recommendation, do not add water to that one. I tried. I did it. I took one for the team. It doesn't need it.
Yeah, no, it's someone's always got to throw themselves on the grenade. We're grateful that you did that tonight.
You're very welcome.
Wow. This is a problem we have at some events that we do. Matt and I have talked about this in the past. Sometimes you're at the front of a room and you're doing a tasting, and your job at the front of the room is to lead the room through it. You're the host, you're the guide up the front. People are looking at you for comments, and sometimes you're floored by a whiskey that is just so good that you lose that sense of the fact that you're actually at the front of the room trying to give a presentation. Sometimes you just want to withdraw from the moment and just enjoy the dram for what it is. And it's a tragedy sometimes. We've got to pull ourselves back into work. But you probably just noticed about 6 seconds of dead air time there. We were both just
having a moment.
This is a great dram.
Yeah, having a moment. Yeah, that's a great dram. And the folks also extend on Andrew's comment there for a second of expressing one of the other sad moments is when you say, okay, I won't get a moment to really enjoy that because I'm in work mode. And then you come back later and you think, oh, there'll be a smidge left in that bottle from that event. And there isn't.
Yeah.
It's gone. Like, well, I'm glad they enjoyed it. That's what I was here for. Fine. I'll leave it at that. Or I'll bite the bullet and buy one and take one home because, yeah, that's lovely stuff. Absolutely lovely.
Well, I don't mind sharing with people. I had to pounce on a bottle of RR24 for that same reason.
Yep. Yeah.
And I might be in the queue to get this one on Friday as well.
Yeah, it's also worth noting for everyone that this one was released in the UK only just 2 weeks ago, or actually even just maybe a week ago, and it's completely sold out there as well, the R3. So it's been very popular and for very good reason. Shall we move on, though? 10.241 is next on our menus. Sound of Singing Sand.
Just for a last little comment on the preceding whiskey, would it be fair to say our good friend Ewan put this together?
Yeah, Ewan put this together. Yep.
Ewan, well done, mate. You have absolutely killed that.
Nailed it. Yeah, absolutely.
Nailed it. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Sorry. I was using the stand-up comedy line where kill is something good.
Yeah. No, kill is good, Ewan. We're talking in a good context. Ten, 2, 4, 1. Sound of Singing Sand. We're up to here. Getting there, folks. We're getting there. Okay. Oh. Have you poured yours? Yeah, you have. Yep.
I have indeed.
Yeah.
Wow. So we talked earlier about the distilleries on Isla that actually, make peated whiskey, and of the 9 there at the moment, 7 of them make peated whiskey all year round, and 2 of them, Brook Laddie and this one, just do very short peated campaigns for the year, and it varies between 2 weeks to 4 weeks, basically. Although, having said that, this distillery, the last I heard, they'd actually extended that out to a fair bit. I think they were doing peated runs for, was it 2 to 3 months? Was the last bit of goss I heard about this one.
Yeah, it's all goss and like hearsay sometimes. Like it's all something. It's all one of those words.
Yeah. In any event, look, this is they did their first experimental run of peated whiskey back in 1994. It was deemed under different ownership. It used to be owned by the same mob that owns Macallan and Famous Grouse, and they were after some peated whiskey, so they didn't have to buy Lafroig or Carlila. So they wanted to make peated whiskey in-house, so they went to distillery number 10 and in 1994 and said, please make some peated whiskey. They did it, and they deemed it to be a failure. They decided that experiment didn't work, and they flogged off all those casks, and they sold them all to the society. So the society actually was the first organization to say, well, this is what peated number 10 looks like. And they did that again in 97. So 3 years later, they tried another run of peated whiskey in 97. That was also deemed a failure. Guess who picked it up? The society. The distillery then changed hands. It was no longer in the hands of the mob that owned Famous Grouse. New owners took over. It's all part of Burn Stewart now, which is part of a bigger umbrella again. And it was quite some time ago that they decided to start making peated spirit and decided it was working. and now this distillery does actually put out some commercial releases that are peated, and the society's been able to pounce on quite a few of those over the years.
Now, a special note for this 10.241, it is one of the single casks for the Isla Festival this year. This is not your typical extra maturation, though. If you pay careful attention to the notes, the cask type comes across as second fill PX hogshead, which is true. But just read down the bottom, it says, following 5 years in an ex-bourbon hogshead, we transferred this whiskey into a second fill of PX hogshead. That's almost a half and half maturation at this point. That's 5 years in ex-bourbon and four and a bit years probably in XPX. So
I think the industry's moved on a bit to the point now where this sort of behavior is becoming so commonplace that when the second maturation is roughly that of the first, we're no longer using the word finish. And everyone's now using the term secondary maturation or extra maturation.
I think the guide on that from the SWA was if it's 3 years or plus if additional maturation of extra, it's an additional maturation because it's an additional minimum term.
Okay.
Under 3 has sometimes still been called a finish, but if it's over 3, it's sort of an additional maturation.
Well, you can always rely and trust on the SWA to try and regulate something, can't you?
You can. Yeah, you certainly can. Yeah.
Wow. That's a lovely drop too. Very, very different to its predecessor.
Very different. Yeah. Like far more, I get far more like aniseed.
Yeah.
Like really fatty bacon.
Oh, good call with the bacon. I was almost going to go in the territory of pea and ham soup.
Pea and ham soup. Yeah. Yep. Like streaky bacon, pea and ham.
Yep.
Yeah, pea and ham. God, that is very good, actually. There is a slight vegetal note there, isn't there?
Yeah.
That's lovely.
I don't know how well the image is showing the. And let me just get out of the way here.
And I'll maximize you for a second. Here we go. And 3, 2, 1. There we go.
But this photo was taken from the Isle Festival on the day, the number 10 day. For those of you who don't know, for each of the distilleries on Isle, they all get dedicated a day, and that's their open day when everyone pounces down to that neck of the woods. So yep, there you go. And again, you know, each day is a day of malt and music and celebration. So there's bands around as well. It's not just all about the whiskey.
Yeah, yeah. The open day at Lagavulin that I went to that year was absolutely piercing down, and like torrential levels of rain, sideways and downways rain at the same time. And there was a band trying to play, but they kept getting washed out and kept having to move. It was a total disaster, but it was a good day. It was good fun still.
Last time I was actually on Isla at the time of the festival, I was trying to get across to Jura because I had an appointment over there to chat to the manager about something I was working on at the time. And it was very bizarre being on Isla, but actually mentally trying to get to Jura.
Yeah, your mind was saying yes, but your body wasn't following.
Yeah, that's right. That was the same trip where I got off the ferry at Port Ellen and I was making my way to Port Ascaig, and John McShane flagged me down by the side of the road in his kilt.
He was probably just trying to find the nearest pint.
I hadn't slept for 25 hours. I literally got off the plane at Glasgow, hired a car, drove to Isla. You know, I was going on the smell of fumes. I was almost dead, and John flags me over, and we had a couple of drams and some beers together. It was a fantastic night. And next morning at 9 a.m. I was at Jura.
Somehow. Yeah. Yeah.
But sorry, we digress. I'm being indulgent there. What a lovely drop. Second fill, PX Hogshead.
Yep.
Well, and you know, good on the society for showcasing that. I think PX is a very exotic, glamorous cask finish, and there's been a lot of releases that have from every bottler and brand under the sun. And there's this sensational feeling that if you add the letters PX to your label, somehow it's meant to exude and imply some degree of luxury and wonderful sweetness. And we've all been disappointed with casks and releases and bottlings that said PX on the label, and then the whiskey didn't really deliver that. And when they do make a song and dance about PX, you know, they'll sing from the rooftops that it's first fill. Good on the society for saying, look, this is second fill. And utilizing that. So it's got a little bit of those characteristics. You're getting some of the grape and the sherry and the wine contributing, but it's not overpowering. And it actually fuses really well with the distillate that number 10 has to offer.
Lovely. We did pick up about 100 of these, so then they'll be going on sale on Friday.
Yum. Do you remember when the commercial expression from this distillery, the commercial 12-year-old, used to actually have a reasonable amount of sherry casks in the vatting? You know, each time they did a batch, there'd be whatever it was, 9,000 bottles would get done at a time, and it was you know, mostly ex-bourbon with a little bit of sherry casks thrown in, and and this is the unpeated make, I hasten to add, and the 12-year-old, just the flagship offering, was such a lovely, sweet, wonderful drop, and I think this kind of pays tribute to that. It's got all those hallmarks. It's sweet. The sherry adds something. Obviously, unlike the flagship expression, this has got the peat that adds to the mix as well, so you're getting the lovely smoke. But it just blows my mind that they did, you know, two peated runs of this in 94 and 97, and the owners at the time decided that this distillery couldn't make peated whiskey. How wrong could they be?
Oh yeah, so out of touch with it.
But the trouble was they made that decision 2 or 3 years into the maturation cycle, and decided after 2 years, 3 years, this hasn't worked, and sold all those casks to the society at the time. You know, it then came to light 9, 10, 11, 12 years later that they just, you know, passed on some gold.
Yeah, I bet. And now they run a peated run more regularly. But on your comment of that old 12-year-old, that was also, it was 40% back then, ABV.
Yeah, true.
Not 46.3 or whatever.
Yeah, no, good call.
And it was a much higher sherry proportion in it, and it was chill filtered. It was 40%, and it was I'm going to do a special shout out to someone who doesn't like the spotlight much, but I'm going to do a shout out to Brooke Heyman, who has in the past said that was one of her favorite whiskeys of all time, and I think she stashed away a few for a rainy day on that one because it was the old 12, which was just fantastic. The new 12 was good, but it wasn't anything on the old one.
Hey, Matt, just further to our speculation earlier about how much of their spirit, their production is peated versus unpeated. I've actually just turned to this book here.
The Bible, good.
The Bible. And the plan for 2022, so last year, was to split production between, wow, this will blow you away, 45% peated and 55% unpeated.
There you go.
So they really have amped up the peat, the amount of peat whiskey they're producing.
Incredible. Yep. Well, shall we press on to whiskey number 10?
Number 10.
I had a great photo of Distillery 10 actually just before. Here we go. Different angle.
That's a good shot.
There we go. I think that's I can't. Sonia on the left. I can't remember who's on the right. Anyway,
let me just change my background. Give me one moment. There we go.
What did you go with this next one? Oh, you went with yep, outside. Okay, yep.
Yeah. No, different. My wife took this photo in 2008. Our hire car is just over my my left shoulder or my right shoulder, depending on how your screen is appearing.
Our right, your left.
Yeah, that. Oh God, that's
right. My hire car's here.
There's my hire car. Yeah.
And I've gone with the photo that Rich Goslin and the team took just recently.
Great shot.
Sun hitting the stills there just momentarily. So, shall we have a taste of 53.447, The Edge of Midnight? Just
love
for a second.
The color on this.
Yeah, it's full maturation, single cask.
Yep.
First fill American Oak PX Hogshead. Now, I just want to touch on one thing to do with this release. Well worth remarking on. Is that it's first of all, yeah, it's a full maturation. And second of all, .447. Think about that for a second. In 40 years, we've bottled 447. And I don't know, but I reckon there's got to be one member out there who's like an avid 53 fan who's hunting them all down. They're like Pokemon. You've got to catch them all. But this is like, it's cool to see that, like, this is the highest number at the Society by a long shot. Distillery 3 and Distillery 1 and Distillery 35 are up there in numbers as well. But nothing comes close to 53's string of casks. Now, this is, if you've got a bit of the rare release 53 left in another glass, this is a cool side-by-side because they're quite different. If I'm being honest, when I first tasted these two whiskeys, I was leaning towards the rare release 53, but I might be changing my mind a bit because this one's singing for me tonight.
I think the nose on the RR is a bit more prevalent. Mind you, my glass has been sitting there for 20 minutes now, breathing, so it's had a bit of time to open up. There's an earthier peat with this one.
Yeah, there is. I'm getting far more like coffee grounds with this one. Like spice jam.
Oh, Matt. No comparison.
No comparison?
On the palate, this wins. As good as that earlier one was, and it was friggin' good, don't get me wrong.
That's very good.
This has done the Stephen Bradbury and just punched through at the finish line at the last moment and left everyone on the floor.
That's smoky bacon maple jam and black
Wow.
coffee, and that's lovely. Ooh, that's a lovely drop. I might have to pour the rest of my sample on that one. That's very good. I was hoping just to have a tiny little sip of that, but that's a little bit too good.
Wow. This is I'm sure every member on the planet has had this issue where you read the tasting notes and you taste it for yourself, and you try and make that link. And I'm sure we've all read tasting notes that the panel in the UK has put together and thought, I don't get that, or these guys must have tasted something different to me. This is one of the few ones where, for me, I reckon the panel got it 100%, which is a quirky way of saying I get the same things they did. I think the tasting notes for this are incredibly accurate.
Steak sauce is a good call. Savory steak sauce.
Yeah.
Stop talking about steak, everyone, please. 1 hour 50 in. Dirty martini at Fino Sherry. PX follows. Fino Sherry note. Okay, very cool. Very cool. Rich Terry. Oh, yeah, I agree with most of your comments there, David.
Well, David said rich mocha, and that ties in with the official notes that make a reference to black coffee. Yeah, there's definitely a coffee element there.
Mark's asked a great question here. Is the high count of casks we've bottled, is it because it's preferred Isla source for the society, or just that there is less choice in the region in comparison to Highland and Lowland regions? It's sort of option 3, actually, Mark. It's sort of like there's the nickname for the distillery is Mr. Consistent. And when you get this much good supply and it's consistently good, you bottle it. And I would probably wager not many 53s have failed panel. Because they're just consistently good. It's great spirit. It works well, as we've seen young. We've seen some 7-year-old, maybe even 6, but 7-8-year-old casks. We've seen 11, 12s, 14s now. We've seen 18s a lot in the past, 20s, 25, 30, and more. So it's consistently good. It's and there's good supply. It is the biggest distillery in Ireland. So
I was about to say it's the biggest by a long shot. It's distilling close to 6 million liters of alcohol a year at the moment. Lefroy is down at, is it 2.9 or 3 thereabouts? So
that, yeah,
it's almost twice what the others are producing.
Yeah.
And all the other producers on the island, of course, have a very high single malt profile, whereas 53 less so. So there's certainly a lot more opportunity to acquire casks.
Also, I'm going to make note of this as well, like the 108, what we started with. We picked up 132 bottles out of a possible 277 yielded from the whole cask.
131, Matt.
Sorry, 131 now, yep.
Yeah, no, I went early on this.
Andrew doesn't skip the line. It's okay, folks. It's okay. But
yeah, that's a very good point. I do not skip the line. Let's make that very clear to everyone.
Yeah, he doesn't. No one at the team does. We've got we're pretty firm on that kind of stuff.
Very firm. It's a rule I put in 12 years ago that I'm very annoyed with myself about now.
Yeah, so it's that's a thing. Yeah, but we've picked up half the cask, and I think you can see why. It just tastes incredible. Yeah, you're right, Mark. Yes, the rare release 53 is the one that stuck to the glass earlier. I actually haven't done a glass viscosity test on this one. It's still very it's slow, but I'd say it's faster than the other one, but it doesn't. I mean, it's.
Do you know what? I've just realised I've got a problem. As you can see here, this glass is empty, but like all good engineers, I have a solution.
Ah, good.
I'm just going to top it up a little bit.
Andrew's about to engineer the hell out of this. So I'm not sure which branch of engineering that falls into. It could be civil. It could be.
I'm a civil engineer, mate. We're always polite. Yeah, look, different legs, it must be said. Not quite as thick and as viscous as
the rare release, but I don't think it doesn't really.
That's okay. I smell and taste the liquid, not what I say.
This is an exciting release. It's also got a cool name, Edge of Midnight. This is the kind of thing you could have on the edge of midnight. This is an 1158 dram.
Almost sounds eerily like a Tom Cruise movie as well.
Oh, I thought you were going to go with it. Sounds like a Tom Waits song name, because it could also be that. It could also
could be. Yeah.
Like
Tom Cruise movie with a Mr. Waits soundtrack.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Mission Impossible with Tom Waits. Yeah, that could work. Probably not though.
Wow.
I just love that barbecue sauce note one in this one. Actually, I know that's listed in the tasting notes, that one, but it is the palate.
You know what I think is really fascinating, and this is a tribute to our colleagues in Scotland who put this parcel together. It's not too often you do a structured tasting event with 10 whiskies. Certainly, if you come along to any of our events, there'll be 5, maybe 6. Matt, you and I have been to all sorts of events where there's been, beyond that. But certainly to do a structured event where you do 10 whiskies in a lineup, by the time you get to, 7, 8, 9, 10, there's a risk that palate fatigue can kick in, that there's a bit of same going on. And what's been remarkable about this tasting tonight, and therefore a reflection on the 10 bottlings put together by the society, there's enough diversity and such a wide spectrum of flavors and aromas that we've presented that we've got to the end of a 10 whiskey lineup. And for me personally, my palate's still very fresh. I'm still energized and excited by what we're tasting. It's just been a wonderful lineup of whiskeys.
Yeah, no, I thoroughly agree. And it's been I think the order we did them in as well is good.
And when you consider that, we had 5 unpeated malts and then did 5 peated whiskies in a row. And if you've ever been to an event where it's all peated whiskies, you can get overwhelmed by the peat and smoke. That's not happened tonight. And I think that's, again, a reflection of the quality and the diversity of the spirits we're tasting. I'm looking over my shoulder here because that's where my drams are, just down there. It's been, just a wonderful reflection of the skill of Ewan and his team in what they're doing right now.
Yeah, no, it hugely skilled releases and so perfectly integrated, each one in a different way. And it's just so exciting to see that level of innovation and that level of cask management and what the society does best, which is maturation and bottling of great spirits. It's like you can't ask for anything more than that.
Yeah.
That concludes our formalities for this evening. We've just scraped in under the 2-hour mark, and I appreciate you all coming along for the ride. I will do a quick, I love doing a quick preview of what's coming up in June Outturn, at least just for a moment here, so you can all see what's coming up. Oh, no, wrong screen. Here we go.
Don't showcase on me.
If you just want to sit there, Andrew, and look pretty, that's fine. But we're celebrating Champs Month for June. It's all about blind tastings. It's all about trusting your nose, trusting your palate, and having a good time with flavor rather than knowing what's exactly in your glass. And that's kind of the fun of the month with Champs Month this month. So no other leaks about what's coming up with an Outturn just yet, but there's definitely some goodies on the way. We'll just jump over the next slide. There's a photo from Champs last year. We're back in the Art Gallery, New South Wales this year. At the time,
a good venue. Such a good venue.
Yeah, it's just so colourful and so fantastic to be back there. And we'll of course be taking over the whole Art Gallery for the championship in exactly a month from tomorrow. So it's only around the corner.
And just to explain that image that Matt's just brought up now, there are, go back one. There you go. 8 drams, a list of 9 whiskies that it could possibly be. So there's 1 red herring on the list, and all you got to do is choose which. It's a piece of cake. Piece
of cake. And one of my favorite moments from last year's Champs, if you can see the 5th glass in a row there on the number 5, is ever so slightly darker than the ones preceding it. And it was that was Starward Nova from memory. And that was one of the whiskeys. And I love the fact that there were 4 members from the Starward team competing. And I did say to them afterwards, if any of them flunked out on whiskey number 5, then they need to find themselves a new job. So it's always good also riling up those who think they know their stuff on the night. It's a fun night. It's a perfect mix of skill and luck. And as of right now, I think there's maybe 3 tickets left. It's been very popular, so it's good to see that it's sold so well. But we'll see you all for Champs, of course. But in the meantime, I think that's where we leave you. Love you and leave you. Thank you so much, everyone, for being a part of tonight and tasting through the full Festival 10. Most of the festival releases are out already and on the festival releases page. I'll throw that QR up just in case you haven't got it already, but you can also just check out the smws.com.au/shop. And the other releases, the 253s, the 3, and the 10 will be live as of this Friday, coming up at midday. So make sure you're logged in. All the usual sort of tips and tricks of how to get those bottlings are always online. And really thank you everyone for tuning in. Great comments coming through tonight. Thank you so much. Thanks from everyone for tuning in and having a good time. For those who couldn't make it along for the live session, which was Carla, Darren, and a few others who I know bought packs tonight. Of course, this will be on our YouTube channel and our Facebook group to watch over the next few days. So it'll be there forever. Don't worry, it's fun. That bottle behind your left shoulder might be in June out turn. This one, yeah, it could be, but the label's facing away, so I wouldn't be able to possibly tell you what's in it. In the meantime, we'll catch you all soon. Andrew, thank you again.
Absolute pleasure. Always a pleasure drinking with you. We should do this again sometime.
Yeah, we should do this again sometime. Thanks, folks. We'll see you all very, very soon.
Cheers, folks. It's been a pleasure. Till next time.